everybody, and welcome back to another week of Just Gay Stuff podcast. I am Jess.
And I'm Lauren.
And depending when you're listening to this episode, it is either a little bit into January or a long way into January. But either way, we're a bit like, we don't know because
we don't know anymore.
we had a few weeks off for the holidays. So
which is very rare for us.
It is. And so we are getting back into the swing of things now. And looking back over the holiday season, we hope that everybody did have a great time and a safe time.
Yes.
And you're all enjoying your beginning to 2025.
Woo.
Well, it's not New Year, New Us.
No.
We're New Year, same gay shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had
I thought you were going to go same gay us. I was like, what?
Same gay us anyway.
Same gay us. I didn't know where you were going.
Oh, I'm going everywhere.
We had it down pat before recording.
We did. Anyway, how did the holidays look for you? We never get holidays. How are your holidays?
We never get holidays. Holidays has been so nice for us to have quality time together. I know that it's been such an odd one because we've both sort of worked sporadically throughout the holidays. Like
2 days on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 4 days off.
Yeah, and normally you would take the holidays like full on.
Yeah, I didn't take the holidays off this year because I took a sneaky 1 week off in the early
beginning
December.
of December. Yeah,
so I felt like that would have been pretty rude of me to then go away again. So I didn't.
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's allowed us to refresh, spend that time together, think about, the goals for Just Gay Stuff.
Yeah.
Now.
And what everybody wants to hear from us this year. And if you do have any topics that you would like to hear our opinions on or hear us cover, please write them in.
Please.
justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com. You can still get to us from that email.
And if you don't want to message us via email, please send us and follow us on social media, on TikTok.
I have to say, we did not cover this on our Christmas episode, but that was our 50th episode.
Yeah,
and that was such an important milestone for us. So just going into this new year, I want to just thank everybody so much. Everybody who has followed us on socials, everybody who listens every week. Lauren and I both put so much into this podcast every week.
Really, a lot of love and hard work and sweat and tears.
Yeah, a lot of sweat and tears. It's like a whole second job.
Lauren's usually telling Jess, did you get it done yet?
Lauren keeps me accountable. But without that constant support and without your messages and
your love,
people writing in their worst first dates and all of those things, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
So this only happens because of your support and we are so, so grateful.
Incredibly grateful. Super appreciative.
All right. Another thing I wanted to touch on before we get into today's topic is every year at the start of the year, Lauren and I do a vision board. And I wanted to kind of share my vision board and my bucket list for this year because I feel like saying it on the podcast will hold me a bit more accountable for what I'm hoping to achieve.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe we could both share 3 things that we're hoping to do this year.
Sure.
What do you got?
Oh, I'm going first?
Yeah, you're going
okay.
first. Just so you know, throughout this episode, I'll be asking questions and you're going first every time.
Okay, I'm going first every time. Got you.
Because ladies first.
Ah.
Or what's the saying? Beauty before beast. There you go.
You're not a beast.
But you are definitely beauty.
Can you tell we've been together for over a year now?
No, it still feels like a honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Living. Anyways, my bucket list, go to Japan with my best friend.
Gonna tick that one off finally.
Tick that one off finally. I only went to overseas last year via cruise to New Zealand. So that was my first overseas trip. So now we're going to go a little bit further to Japan.
Yeah.
Next one, try and save as much money as possible so you and I can get a house.
Yeah, hopefully. We can enter that property market this year, but we'll see how we go.
Playing this very expensive game of Monopoly.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's a super expensive
For anyone
game.
else out there who is trying to make their waves in the property market, you know what we're talking about.
That's just before we go any further. This always reminds me of when you see those memes on Facebook where it's like, oh, me being lazy at nap time during kindergarten when I should have spent my lunch money buying a house.
Yeah, literally. That's how I feel right now.
Oh, third one. I don't know if I have a
You don't have a
third one that I can think of at the top of my head. I guess just for just gay stuff to continue to be successful and to meet new people. Like we've already met some incredible people, but I think, just to continue on that trajectory of going up.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. Do. What about you?
Well, I feel like mine are a bit boring, but I realized the other night at a gig that I cannot see. So I thought, I already wear glasses. I'm going to kind of transition into trying contacts.
Ooh, actually, I did know this. You were...
That's one thing. My eyes with my glasses off is getting way too dangerous.
You can't play with your glasses on?
No. I could play with my glasses on, but I feel like I get really sweaty, and then you can't wipe your face with glasses on when you're trying to play. So I feel like...
Then do your glasses slippy?
Yeah.
Get slippery?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
My second one is a really big one, but I don't think it's going to be too attainable because we don't have a lot of time, but I would love to play some sport again.
Oh, wow.
But I really don't think I'm going to have time to like join a team.
I would love to see you play some sport.
I'd love to see you play some sport.
No, nobody wants to see me play some sport.
We have like an empty lot down the end of our street. Maybe we could just go kick a ball once a week.
Yeah, we have our Tilly's
Maybe
balls.
just for like an hour.
Your mum gave us some.
Yes, my mum gave us
Tilly's
Matilda's
stuff for
like
Christmas.
Full lesbian Christmas gift, can I say. Matilda's
show
show bags
it in here.
from the Anyway, my other one is just like a normal kind of fitness goal. I
should have added that to mine.
I feel like I've always struggled with body image, and Lauren and I talk about this all the time, but I think I would just like to try and get down to a certain weight, maintain that for the year, and just, I think we can all agree that we want to try and feel the best about ourselves. And I think I'm going to do that because, you can't have goals without the step.
Yeah.
I am going to do that by starting to cycle 10 kilometers every morning on the exercise bike. And that's attainable to me because I get up early when Lauren goes to work.
Yeah.
And
whether you want to or not.
Yeah. And the exercise bike's behind the TV. So maybe I'll get some gaming time in at the same time.
I was going to say, you could just play your game while you're exercising. That's a really good one, actually.
It's just a habit, right? Once you start a good habit, you continue that. And we always talk about bad habits, but what about these good habits that we do?
They say it takes 30 days for you to attain a good habit.
And it takes 5 days to break a bad one.
Yeah.
That's a vast difference.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, should we get into today's topic?
I think we should.
I feel like it might be a heavy topic, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to insert this little trigger warning just in case
it's conversation.
Well, just in case the conversation starts to get a bit dark in places, because I feel like some of my answers to these questions might trigger some people in a dark. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there because I don't want.
Just in case.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like uncomfortable conversation.
Fair.
But so over the holidays, I had a question raised to me that really got me thinking. And the question was, it was from someone in my inner circle. The question was, do you like being queer? And honestly, I had never really thought about it much before that. And it made me think that the statement alone, do I like being queer, is a full journey.
Yeah.
And I think each of us have to pull back the layers on that journey of like self-discovery and self-acceptance and who am I today versus who I was, and do I like myself in this space? So that's our topic today. Do I like being queer?
Wow. That's a heavy one.
For me, I have swayed between yes and no as the answer my whole life. And I think everyone's experience changes as we grow. But we're going to delve into that today with our own experiences. And yeah, like I said, it could be a heavy topic of discussion.
Yeah.
But I want you to start.
Yeah.
When you think about that initial question, do you like being queer? How does that question make you feel?
It's a very weighted question.
Yeah.
Like just you reading it to me, you don't think about it because you spend so much time when you're in this queer space protecting yourself and building yourself up that you don't actually stop to think about the question itself.
Yeah.
Like, do you like being queer?
I think we are always handed the questions, are you queer?
Yeah.
Or are you not queer? Or where do you fit in the queer umbrella? But it's never, how do you feel about you being in this umbrella?
See, that's such a hard thing for me to answer because it's like, well, being queer is who I am authentically. Do I like some of the things that come with being queer? No. I honestly am dumbfounded by this question. I really don't know how to answer that. And I'm sure a lot of our audience would probably feel the same way.
Yeah. I wanted to peel back the layer of our coming out stories.
Okay.
And obviously, we're not going to go back into those today.
No.
Everyone knows that coming out stories are a massive topic for us on this podcast. We ask all of our guests about it. We talk about it all the time, about self-discovery and what you know about yourself, but we rarely talk about how we feel about what we discover about ourselves.
Wow.
So let's go back to, how did you feel when you first discovered your sexuality?
I think for me, it was a very confusing time. In our first initial episode, I spoke about how I identified as a bisexual girl because I was a girl at 12 years old. That's a very confusing time. Hormones have just started. All your friends are having crushes on all these boys and everything. And I was a very shy and insecure child to begin with. And to not have any representation or education that it was okay and that it was accepted to like both men and women at the time, because, you know, it was still, I don't even know when it was, like I'm only 31 now. Mm-hmm. That wasn't that long ago. Yeah, I think the only positive is that I grew up with a very supportive mother who herself identifies as bisexual or pansexual. So I had a lot of like open support, so it wasn't really a bothersome thing to me. And then being in high school, being around theatre kids, again, everyone's fluid and quite open. So I was pretty lucky in that regard.
But how did you feel in the space? Like, what did you feel about the prospect of your sexuality differing from what is considered normal? Because I think that's the big question, right? How do you feel about that prospect of being different to quote unquote normal?
I think it was very hard, and I felt upset and ashamed a bit and probably a bit defensive, because I do remember bullying happening where I got called a lesbian and getting told to F off and all these other things just because people thought they knew what my sexuality was. I didn't know what my sexuality was. So it was a very hard thing to deal with. So I didn't like it. I just wanted to feel normal or feel accepted or feel like it was just a normal thing or feel part of something.
So at that stage of your life, did you like being queer?
Not at 12 years old when I first had noticed that there was something different about me, no.
Mine is exactly the same. I feel like I touched on this slightly when we were talking about first crushes in our firsts episode.
Yeah.
But when I was 10 and I had that mad crush on that girl in my class, and I talked about how all I kept thinking about was, I wish I was a boy so that I could be with someone like her. Like, wow, I wish I could just be with her. And obviously that mindset came from the fact that I didn't know two girls could be together, or that you could love whoever regardless of gender, because obviously that wasn't talked about and it wasn't accepted back then. That was in 2001.
Yeah, wow.
So I never saw that in real life as a 10-year-old. You didn't even see it on TV. And even if you did, when you're a kid, everything on TV when you're a kid isn't real.
No.
Even real shows as a kid you don't think are real because you're 10 or you're 12 or, you know.
And you don't understand it.
Yeah. And so I think when I was feeling all of those feelings when I was younger, I kind of just thought that that was a normal thing and it would just eventually go away.
Yeah.
But then when representation started making its way onto TV and I started to see those feelings I was feeling, I was like, yeah, oh my God, that's me. That's what I feel. I'm seeing what I feel. And then the backlash that those storylines got on TV, either from audiences watching them or the fact that the people in the TV show or in the movie, you know, in most 2000s TV shows, there was always someone hating on the gay person.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I started to really dislike the idea that I was that person that was hated. And so at that stage, I was like, wow, like I remember sitting in my room one day and thinking, oh my God, am I a lesbian? Oh my God, I don't want to be gay because I don't want to be different and I don't want people to hate me.
Yeah.
And that's where I think when some people are so adamant about the fact that it's a lifestyle choice, I feel like I would never choose this. Like, do you think people would want to choose to be outcast from society or choose to be marginalized or choose to be hated? Like, if it was a choice, I definitely don't think I would ever choose it.
No, neither. I think that's what people outside of our community forget. And when people go, oh, why would you choose to date this person? Why would you choose to be gay? You don't choose who you have feelings for. My biggest thing is, why as a minority group would you subject yourself to hate if you could? Like,
absolutely.
If you could choose, you wouldn't do that. Actually, as you were talking, I just remembered in that same bracket between the 12, 15 to 16, before I really started to be more okay and feel accepted by the theatre group and that area, I remember friends watching TV and starting to like these boys, and me in a way kind of masking and being like, yeah, me too, or oh yeah, that guy is really hot, but not having any attraction or real feeling towards them, just so that I could have some sense of fitting in.
Yeah, I feel the exact same. I remember there was one point where my friends and I were all at a sleepover and we had rented out Imagine Me and You, the movie with Lena Headey and the girl from Coyote Ugly, and she like leaves her husband for this woman. And I remember being at this sleepover and there was like the kissing scene and everybody in the sleepover was like, ew. And I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Like I did not understand. And like I feel like there was a few turning points from that moment, but I'll talk about mine. Are there any turning points that you saw when representation started to enter your life?
Ooh, a big turning point for me was, and I've spoken about this moment on our podcast before, was when I had moved schools to be where my best friend was at, and we went to a party after a theatre show, and one of the girls came up to me and said that her friend liked me and stuff, and I went, oh, I'm in a high school space. We were very fortunate. None of our year levels had cliques or anything.
That's very fortunate.
It was very fortunate. So everyone kind of knew everyone. We all just partied in the same areas and stuff. And I think I was in year 9. And yeah, this girl said, oh, my friend likes you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I was like, hang on a second. That's okay. Like it was just a nonchalant thing. It just was like, oh, this is...
And it like opened up that space for you. It opened up
that space of like safety and everything. And yeah, of course you can say, well, you know, you're at a party, you're all drinking. But I knew from the beginning that this girl identified as queer herself because I had already met this person previously. But I think just that moment in time really opened up that space for me to be like, oh, that's just a normal thing.
Yeah. I think for me, as time went on and representation grew stronger, like this is literally where I think representation on television counts for so much of someone's life, because as I started to see really strong lesbian characters emerge in television and movies, and I'm talking about a couple that I mentioned in our first couple of episodes, Ashley Davies, played by Mandy Musgrave in South of Nowhere, Alex Kelly, played by Olivia Wilde in The OC. Those are the really two standout lesbian characters that I'm thinking of. And as these women, they were still bullied and they faced their own trials and tribulations, but they started to fight back.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like those relationships and the acceptance was slowly starting to be shown. And I feel like that was a really strong turning point for me, that it was okay to live that side of your life if you felt so strongly about it. And then I kind of started to feel like that part of me was okay to accept, even if no one but me saw it.
Yeah.
And I started to feel like it was that secret that made you different and that made you special. Like when you start to experiment with girls in high school and not many people know, it's kind of like being a vampire or being like Hannah Montana. You have this secret side of you that only you know about. And that was top secret and it was so exciting. And I don't know if that was just because you're essentially going against the grain of societal norms, or like maybe my hetero friends felt the same when they were kissing boys. But to me, that side of things that was kind of secret and exciting it felt amazing.
I agree. I think we grew up in a weird time where representation for us wasn't there for a long time, and then suddenly it started to emerge. Whereas the kids these days, luckily, there's a lot more representation.
You could loosely say representation is everywhere.
Out there. Yes, we have a long way to go, and I understand that's why you said loosely. But I think today's society has a lot more education and representation.
There's no doubt that there's a lot more acceptance now.
Acceptance out there. But I do understand. I think it was kind of like the thrill of it, kissing someone, be like, oh, wow, this feels different, but like a good kind of different, but I don't want to share it with anyone. And
yeah, it was like this secretive thing that you had to keep secret because it wasn't widely accepted.
Yeah, but it's your moment of self-discovery for you to understand who you are or start to understand who you are.
The flip side to those feelings for me was that at school, as you said, you didn't have cliques and stuff, but at my school there was definitely cliques and stuff. And there was one group at school that was considered the gay group. Like all these kids were out and they were in that group. And while I was friends with a lot of them, you never wanted to be classed as one of them because that made you different, and they were treated badly by some people, and you didn't want that. And then from there, I feel like that had a really negative effect on me, where you started to see the backlash that other people were copping for being authentically themselves. And I think that's where a lot of internalized homophobia set in for me, when I saw how in real life people were unaccepted. So I tried to fly under the radar and not be singled out. And I just started saying some of the really negative homophobic shit that everyone else was saying.
Really?
Yeah, just because I didn't want to be known as different. I didn't want to be singled out. And like, it was such a journey just thinking about all those feelings, and it's just this part of you, and you just start to hate the fact that you have this different thing and you can't just fit in.
Yeah. It is hard when the hate is all you get taught or see. Mm-hmm. So of course, straight away, and that's what I said at the beginning was, if you had the choice, you wouldn't want to choose hate.
Do you feel as an adult now there are any turning points as you've gotten even older, like knowing that now we do have all this representation, now we do have more wide acceptance, and we have gay marriage now and things like that, that is literally society being like, you are here and you are being counted for?
Yeah. I guess my turning point would be when I officially came out as queer, lesbian, gay, whatever. I flip between whichever one on the day. I generally go for queer because I feel like that's just the umbrella term for a little bit spicy different, I guess. I think it definitely does help that legal marriage and representation and everything is a lot more accepted now. But yeah, my turning point would have been when I came out at 26 to officially be like, hey, I'm queer, this is it. I think another thing that was kind of my turning point was telling my grandparents, because I was very scared as their traditional Israeli people and I wasn't sure how they would react, I guess. And both of them still were like, oh, just as long as you're happy, we don't care. And that was very surprising to me because, especially my grandfather, who comes from this very old Israeli ideal of the wife is supposed to look after the man and blah, blah, blah and all that stuff. So I was very
gender norm.
Yeah, very gender norm. But I think the hardest thing is there's a point where you go, yes, they can be taught different, but how can you blame someone when that's all they've known their whole lives?
Or all they've been taught.
So I think the biggest thing is we need to continue doing what we're doing and teaching people that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be different, happy to be accepted, because we are the catalyst for making the education for change.
Mm-hmm. So in that space of you coming out and saying that that was your turning point to feeling more positive, how did you feel when you came out? Was there still fear? Did you like being queer? Going back to the root question.
Yeah, it was a scary thing. The hardest thing for me was I was very confused, but once I had that self-discovery of being like, no, actually, it's purely just that attraction to women and being queer. It was like light bulbs went off and I felt lighter, and you could see it once I started to embrace my true self and accept my true self. Like you've seen the photos of me being in a toxic hetero relationship and not being my true self and being very shy and walked over and everything, to now being in a happy, healthy relationship, being my authentic self, being queer, being confident and a much different and happier person. Like I'm just so happy and at peace.
Yeah. I think for me, the turning points getting older, coming out of that internalized homophobia, was finding like-minded people. As we say on this podcast all the time, finding your tribe.
Yeah.
That is the biggest form of acceptance that you can feel, and it so helps you accept yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when my best friend and I got the courage to tell each other, the year of leaving high school because you were no longer seeing the same people every day that could like potentially ruin your life. I automatically felt like I wasn't alone, and I suddenly had a sounding board for all of my feelings and my emotions, whether they were positive or negative. And I remember having sleepovers where we would just talk in depth about if the world would ever accept us, or why we hated certain aspects of life if we were going to be outly queer. And we then got onto those things where, you know, you could suddenly get on the same page and talk about like your crushes and stuff. But then talking about those more harrowing aspects, I want to ask you, what are the harrowing things that you think make being queer viewed negatively?
That's such an interesting question. I have to wrap my brain around that a bit.
Well, it's funny because, you know, a lot of people outside the queer space that don't accept us as queer people, they have a lot of negative things to say, but I feel like there is still a blanket of negativity of us within the queer space.
Yeah.
And how we feel about ourselves.
I think the biggest thing is just fear surrounding being queer. And I, again, have spoken about this before on this podcast. And for me, who coming out bisexual, coming out queer, have had a very supportive lifestyle. I never, fortunately, had to go through that internalized homophobia feelings. I was very lucky in that regard. But now being in a job where certain people aren't safe people or as accepting, or having to suddenly hide parts of myself away. And I think that's probably the number one hardest thing for me is my whole life.
I've had positive
experience and I haven't had to hide. And then suddenly, you know, being in this position of, oh shit, this is what it's like, where you actually have to think about the things that you have out, or think about the fact that you have to hide a certain part of yourself, or think about what you say or who you talk to. I think that's the negative thing for me surrounding being queer, because I'm like, a straight person
doesn't have to
like
think twice.
Think. And I'm like, oh shit, I can't listen to this, or I can't speak about this, or I can't have this on my phone screen in case an unsafe person comes in. And I've never had to deal with that before, and that's such a confronting thing for me.
I feel like this question that was asked, that was just like a simple question, really
it's a scroll.
The things that still affect me in the way I view myself in queer culture is meeting new people and not knowing if they're going to accept me for me or hate me for me. And like that is purely depending on their upbringing and their previous experience that I have nothing to do with. That, and having to protect yourself with, like you said, safe words like using the word partner instead of girlfriend. When working, being sure not to mention partners or your relationship status because you don't know how people are going to take it, or if suddenly you lose work because someone doesn't accept you. I hate that fear is still there. Fear is the number one.
That's what it is. It's fear. I was just, as you were speaking, I was just thinking, you know, there's times where you and I have gone on a date night and gone to walk through the city or through somewhere, and we've gone, oh shit, can we actually hold hands here? For fear. Everything comes down to fear.
Yeah. And I hate that there is still so much of it, because I think sometimes the younger versions of ourselves, or I think the younger version of myself that didn't have that fear, where I was going, oh, this is cool. This is like a secret. I feel like a vampire. Like I have this thing about me that no one knows about and only I know about. We hide behind our youth in the way because people can put it down to a phase or an experiment.
Yeah.
Do you know, actually just thinking, one of the biggest fears I had while going through the internalized homophobia, I just thought of this, was that I didn't want someone else to know I was gay before I knew.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be in a position where all these people knew this thing about me before I was ready to know. So it's like, to cover that up was like, oh, well, I don't like gay people.
Yeah.
And then automatically the people around you go, oh, well, Jess can't be gay. She said she doesn't like gay people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that hard shell of protection. And so I think there's also that.
And what would you have done if the people around you knew? Or
as an adult looking back, I don't know if it would have changed much.
Yeah.
But just because you think that you're doing what's right to protect you, but what's right to protect you was ultimately could have been harmful to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the same as, I have this story that I won't say names, but there's this part of me where I was really heavily bullied in grade 7 and going into grade 8, that transition from primary school to high school. And I had this friendship group, most of them amazing. One of them not so amazing.
Bad apple.
And this person in particular would organize parties and purposefully not invite me. And then I'd find out the next day or whatever that like all of my friends got together and I wasn't invited.
Yeah.
And then one of the reasons when I didn't confront her, but one of the reasons that was given to me was like I was friends with this other girl and she didn't like her.
What?
So my defensive instinct, because I wanted to keep majority of my friends, was to cease my friendship with this other girl, and she'd done nothing wrong. I kick myself now because that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just standing up and being who you are, you like cower into this closet because you think that's what's best for you, and it's so not.
No.
So that's one of the negative things is all the fear.
Yeah.
Know? Even though I joke about this is the most I've been in the queer space.
Yeah.
Which is true.
It's true.
Listening to everyone else's experiences and how everybody else, like all of our guests, talk about some of the really harrowing times they've had to deal with. This is also the first time I've really thought about fear on a scale of where I sit in there.
Yeah.
How much fear do I still have? And it really brings it to the forefront of your mind, I think. Like this topic has
been a lot.
Yeah.
Trigger warning was warranted.
Yeah, I think so. Let's end on the positive though.
Yeah.
So what are the joys for you of being queer?
You.
Oh, well, yeah, likewise. There's that. Actually, sorry, I didn't put you in my answer. but you make a good point.
How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. Besides that, I think just, having this incredible community, being able to feel safe in spaces that may not necessarily be safe. Like I've made so many new friends, like we both have so many new friends last year, sorry. I'm still in 2024.
You're still in 2024.
And I think just being able to really find myself and be a lot more confident and accepting of myself.
So to end your section of this episode, do you like being queer? Or is it still a double-edged sword question?
I think it's still a double-edged sword question because I think the fear aspect is still there, but majority of me likes being queer because that's who I am. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how else to answer that. Yeah, that's who I am.
My joys, when I think of the answer being, yes, I like being queer, comes back down to community and acceptance within the community. It's the tribe and it's the people. And it's the people that have done the hard yards and have struggled to create queer art. Like drag is the biggest thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Like when I think of drag and that kind of culture and all of the really hard things that people have had to go through for us to sit here and have a queer podcast and have people listen to it.
Yeah.
And all of our guests that we've interviewed, when I think about all of that culture and all of that, it makes me proud to be part of this community.
Me too.
And I know we're all still fighting daily to be seen and be visible and for there to be further acceptance. Am I proud to be part of this brave and resilient community? Absolutely. Do I like being gay? I still don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Because I think when people ask the question like, do you like being queer? I think there's still so much of that negativity rising up. And would I have chosen this for myself if it was a choice? Probably not.
No.
But then I think about, would I choose you? And the answer would always be yes.
Yeah. Aw, cute.
So it is. It's a hard question.
It's a hard question because I think it goes... If being queer was just part of a societal norm, then sure.
Yeah. What a hard topic.
That was a hard topic, but a good one. I think a very important one.
I want everybody to think about their answer. I'm going to try and put a question in the poll.
Oh, yeah, do that.
Do you like being queer? And what are the positive and negative things that you still think about within yourself when you think about, do I like being queer? This was a question that really threw me because no one had ever asked it before.
It's a very philosophical, in-depth question.
It's hard because it's kind of like, do I like being of Indian heritage? Well, it's not my choice.
It's part
the same.
of you.
It's part of me.
Yeah.
This is the same. Do you like being queer? Well, it's not my choice. It's part of me. It's a hard topic, guys.
It's a hard topic. Let us know.
We're kicking off this new year with some really
we went to D&M, straight to the D&M heavy.
Yeah. In saying that, we have some really exciting things happening this year.
We do.
We hope that everybody enjoys it. Do you like being queer? Answer the question.
Yeah.
Answer the poll.
And I think until next time,
you better remember to stay gay, motherfuckers.
I'm talking about, you're talking about, we're talking about just gay stuff.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Just Gay Stuff. Make sure to follow us at Just Gay Stuff Podcast on all your socials and write to us with your stories at justgaystuffpodcast@gmail.com.